Fuse with Ken, an amazing experience.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another amazing episode of Fuse with Ken. You know, one of my favorite ways of learning is by learning people's stories. It's diving into their hearts, their minds, and try to understand what we can learn, what we can hear, what we can understand, and we share that with you guys to motivate and inspire you. So, today's guest on Fuse is such an amazing guy. He is an entrepreneur, a motivational speaker, MLM expert, and a success coach. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome, Kalpesh Patel. Nice to have you on the show.
Thank you, Ken. What a beautiful introduction. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Listed out my main kind of areas of experience. So I love that.
Yeah, you know, just before we came on set, I was talking about not seeing you for like 3 years.
Yeah,
you know?
I know.
And, you know, getting to have you on the show here, it's a blessing.
Yes,
so I
likewise.
came prepared.
Thank you. And thanks for inviting me to your show.
You're welcome.
I appreciate it. And isn't it magical how you can meet a stranger?
Okay.
How we met, you know, completely, if you like the word random, it's not randomly, but, you know, completely randomly. And we just connected and we stayed in touch for the last 3 years and here we are.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Love it.
Amazing story.
Yeah.
So quickly, let's just get to it. You know, I like to ask very, you know, personal questions for us to connect with you, understand your journey. I stumbled on one of your quotes and it says, "A chapter a day keeps the bills at bay." So tell us, what does it feel like to be Kalpesh Patel?
What does it feel like? I mean, I'm blessed. I'm grateful every day. I'm blessed that I have been given the life that I've been given so that I can be a testament to others of possibility and, you know, magic. So for me, I count it a privilege to have lived the life that I've lived. Not many people have the opportunity. And I often say that I've lived 100 lives in one. So if I was to drop dead today, I'd be fully filled, used up, and, you know, grateful that I've done what I've done and achieved what I've achieved.
Amazing, amazing. So talking about the lives we've lived, we know that, you know, our childhood shaped us to be the kind of person we are today. So can you tell us a lot about your childhood and how it shaped you into the man you are today?
Absolutely. And again, I just want to pre-qualify that, like our childhood shapes who we are from a very early age. And the beautiful thing about life is that we can then reshape it later on. So there's a double-edged sword there. But if we go, if we go to the childhood that shaped me, and why I feel so grateful is that I come from a family that has an incredible story of multiple generations.
Okay,
and
amazing. Though.
Yeah. So I use these stories in my, you know, when I'm sharing with any audience, and I use these stories to give people hope, if you like, and context. Everyone feels like a victim of life. Everybody's complaining, this happened, that happened, it's his fault, it's her fault, whatever it might be, circumstances, situation, and life. And they end up blaming these things for why they are not a better version of themselves.
Okay, but some persons, you know, they've gone through some difficult times in life and they kind of have the perception, you know, and it affects them and they feel like, okay, I had a very bad or very traumatizing childhood and I'm just here. They keep just playing the blame game and all of that.
Yeah. And I'm never going to take away from that. That happened. You know, whatever you went through, that happened to you. But whether you live with that as your context for life or not is up to you. You can let go of those stories and recreate something new, or you can continue holding on to them and let them limit you, restrict you, and hold you back. That's a choice. What happens is not a choice. Life happens to everyone. Everyone has their version of tough. Everyone has their version of hard times. Everyone has their version of, you know, I didn't want this. I didn't need this. But some people have the ability to let it go and move past and move forward. And others hold on to it for years and decades. So, like, you know, when I talk about my grandparents, I love using this as an example.
Okay.
My grandparents left India and moved to Africa.
Africa?
Yeah.
Where in Africa
build
exactly?
railways. In East Africa, Kenya.
Okay.
Kenya and Tanzania.
I'm Nigerian, by the way.
Oh, there you go. So, same continent, right?
Of
I was
course.
born in Kenya, by the way.
Oh.
As was my father. So, hence why the story's so special, because my grandparents left India more than 100 years ago.
All right.
To progress. They weren't running away. They were not fleeing a danger. They were not forced. Nobody pulled them out. There's no slavery. None of those things.
Okay.
They left of their own free will. to improve the quality of the lives of their children and their children's children. So vision. They were thinking way ahead of time. And I often ask my audiences, would you jump on a boat to an unknown country of yours, like you have no experience in that country? Going from India to Africa was a several-month journey in the wooden boats, not like these cruise liners you have today.
Yeah.
Many of the boats never made it. That journey, like boats would disappear in the sea. Things would go wrong. Many people never made it. People would get sick. There was lots of different sicknesses. Would you take those odds on? Would you take the risk of your life getting across to another country where there's no telephones, there's no communication lines? So it was writing letters back then, right?
Okay.
So you'd only be able to write a letter when you achieve your goal. When you get to the other side, then you write a letter, and that letter goes back on the next boat to your family to let them know that you've arrived. This could be like 4, 5, 6 months later. So now you've left your wife, your children, your family behind. 6 months, they don't even know if you survived or not. And then they get the letter from you. Wow, you survived.
I was having a conversation with someone, I think that was earlier on during the week, and I said something about back in the day. I was looking at what our forefathers lived, and I feel like, men these days, they're a lot softer,
You're very kind, softer. I would use another word, but yeah.
And I'm like, back in the day, our fathers were strong. They were visionary. They were bold, and I'm kind of, what really happened? Why are men a lot
that's a big
soft
question.
these days?
Yeah. So look, every generation has their version of hard and soft. And, for me, if our grandparents had the strength to make those kind of decisions and uproot and lift and restart from scratch with no money, they arrive in Africa, no money, they don't speak the language, they don't understand the culture, all of those things. And they still make the move and they make it work. They end up successful. They bought houses, they raised families. My dad was born in Kenya because my grandparents went there. Okay. My dad was born in Kenya. My mum's side also went there and she was born in Tanzania. They met 25 odd years later, got married. I was born in Kenya. And then when I was a year old, we moved to London.
Okay.
So 3 generations, 3 completely different environments, completely different landscapes.
Okay. So now let's talk about something which, I like to, ask people, especially when I'm interacting with, I know lots of persons that have gone through a journey like yours. What mistakes do you think young people make in their lives that usually affect them, in making those right decisions in life?
And young people today, if we talk about young people, because, again, we can talk about young people when I was young people when my dad was young, right? But if we talk about today, and for me, I want to impact as many lives as possible while I'm alive. And so young people today, I feel the mistake that they make is that their perception of the world is very different to the perception that I have or that you have, right? In that we grew up, and I say we, I'm assuming your generation now. I don't even know your age, right?
Okay.
I'm making a big assumption. If I speak for myself, right? I'm 55.
Ooh.
So at 55, I grew up in a world where the world was changing. But
by the way, you don't look 55. I was going to say
Thank you.
this.
Appreciate
you
that.
look younger than 55. What
There
do
you
you
go.
do to
Thank
keep
you.
this, look?
Mindfulness.
Okay.
Mindfulness.
That's a subject for another day.
It's a whole different subject, right? Mindfully communicating, mindfully eating, living, mindfully. It's a whole subject, as you say.
All right.
But yeah, if we look at the young world of today, they grew up on the internet. And this changes everything. For me, I learned things from my parents that they learned from their parents. And they learned from their parents. There was a process that took place for every generation where change happened, but it happened slowly. So change would happen every few years.
All right.
So we had time to adjust and adapt. The change that's happened in the last 2.5 to 3 decades is unseen, unprecedented. So, suddenly once the internet was opened up to the world in the 90s, that's where kind of, if you like, the softer generation was born.
Now, if you talk about the internet, I've had people say that the internet is kind of a blessing and a curse. How true is that?
Say that again, the internet?
People say that the internet is like a blessing and also a curse.
A curse, yeah. Okay, absolutely. Look, life without the internet, for me today, is impossible to even imagine, right? Because there's so many benefits for me personally. Benefits like my access to education, information, learning, accelerated my awareness because that's the tunnel I went into. But I see other people with the same tool go into different tunnels and they get lost. They start following misinformation. They start following very tunnel views. They limit themselves into what is possible and what isn't. I often laugh at conspiracy theorists, not to take anything away from, there are many conspiracies that become true, but most of them are just imaginary. They're in your mind, right? And it's a tunnel that can suck you in and you can get lost in that tunnel. But it's also, if you dip your toes in the tunnel, a great place to learn and understand that not everything you see and hear is real. And a lot of lies are embedded in society and the way that we live. But you've got to learn to balance that bike of the internet. Many people I see, they fall into it and they don't know how to get back out. And they then start having a very limited experience of life. For me, the internet is a blessing because I keep a very open experience. I want to learn, I want to take the great, and I want to discard the not so great and the very questionable. And so there is a blessing, but it's a massive curse in that, number one, you can be misguided, misinformed, and miseducated, and then you just show up in life confused. But also, it drags you away from life. And that's what I mean by the generation that's born online. They actually have no skills of communication. They have no skills of building rapport. They have no skills of, they think an influencer is somebody that makes a post and reaches 1 million people.
How many followers do you have?
Sorry?
How many followers do you have? They ask you that, the kids of these days.
Right, so that's kind of the trendy thing to do, right?
Yeah.
And for example, I know people that buy followers. Like, that's as fake as it gets. So who are you in that? That's where it's a curse, where you think that you are somebody because of a number that is fake on a screen. And you live your life. You go telling people, look at me, I have 1 million followers, I have 10 million followers. But you bought those. In fact, just a few days ago, we were talking about a friend of mine personally who I know, I'm not going to name him, of course, but around a year ago, he paid for the whole social media presence and has several million followers. And with several million followers, he was getting maybe 1,000 or 2,000 likes on all of his posts. Today, a year later, he stopped paying the people. Now he's stuck with the situation. He's got several million followers, and when he puts a post, he gets 5, 6, 7, 8 likes. Now you look like an idiot.
And that's like a downgrade.
Yeah.
A huge downgrade.
Of course, that's what I'm saying. Now you look like an idiot because now the new person comes in, wow, Ken's got 1 million followers. Hold on. Nobody cares what he's saying. Obviously, there's no value in what he's saying.
Okay.
I'd rather respect. Ken has 500 followers and 50 likes. 10% of his followers are actually listening to him. That's huge.
And that's massive, I would say. Now, let's talk, as we have this conversation today, there's something, I like to talk about, which is purpose. And a lot of people struggle with that. By the way, Fuse is a show where we try to inspire, motivate millions of people across the world, especially young people. So at what point did you say you found your purpose in life?
I'm, again, super blessed in that my purpose, it's not like I found my purpose. And I often say this, that we can choose our purpose.
How?
So
how is that possible?
Brilliant. So people think it's something you have to search for and find. And that can be a laborious process, right? But one thing that we all have, and I love this, every human being has the power of choice. Every human being.
Okay.
And so when I say choose your purpose, more important than finding your purpose, find yourself. Who are you? Once you know who you are, what do you stand for? What are your values? What is important? What is uncompromisable? Define those things first. And from there, every decision you make becomes easier because there are things that you can instantly dismiss and write off and throw off the table because they don't suit who you are. And I'll give you a very simple example. Going through school, there were certain people that chose to sell weed, right? Small thing.
Okay.
No harm done in that context, right? And they made good money.
For them at the time. They felt like it was little.
Yeah. It's no big deal, right?
But it's actually a big deal, by the way.
It was a big deal back then. But in their world, listen, I'm not harming anybody. There's a demand and I'm supplying. If I don't do it, somebody else will do it. I hear that often, right? If I don't do it, somebody else will do it. You're right. Somebody will always do it. But who are you? Are you the person that wants to promote something that may lead to not optimizing people's potential, not elevating people, but suppressing and depressing them, holding them back? Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I never got involved. Now, I was a young entrepreneur. I did my first hustle at 11. So as an entrepreneur, I had all the temptation. I knew.
You know, when you say you started your entrepreneurial journey at 11, that's quite young.
It is, isn't it?
11. 11, what was I doing at the time? Maybe I was just playing football.
Right? So, and again, this is part of it. So when you say purpose, for me, I measure my purpose through how I feel about what I'm doing. And if it makes me feel good, if I feel that I've added value based on my own values, right? So integrity, honesty, trust, these are things that I won't compromise, right? And so adding value. So when it came to selling weed, I was never interested. I could have made tons of money selling weed. And don't get me wrong, I love making money from a young age. Okay. But I stuck to selling trainers, tracksuits, clothing, things that the same age group was demanding, but I felt added better value rather than diminishing them. You see what I'm saying? Okay. So I chose to monetize in a way that felt good for me. And this made me feel even better. As we grew up, when I got to university, I was selling and buying cars. The concept was the same.
At what age were you buying and selling cars?
19. Okay. 18, 19. As soon as I got my first car, I fell in love with that experience of being able to drive when I was like 18 years old, driving around, the freedom. And then I'm surrounded by students who want that freedom. And as soon as they pass their test, I'd be like, right, what car do you want? Make sure, you let me know and I'll source it.
So what kind of cars do you like now? At your age? At 55?
I enjoy, so I currently drive a beautiful Bentley. I enjoy luxury cars. So there was a time, luxury sports, right? So
fast cars, you would say?
Yeah. It's nice to experience the roads, right? So and Dubai has beautiful roads.
All right.
So, but it's about the understanding that I was selling to my peer group things that fit in my values.
All right.
So 11, I was selling chocolate bars and crisps. Do you see? Because that's what kids want. In my teens, I was selling clothing. As I got older, I was selling cars. Then I came out of university and I got into retail. So I was buying and selling on a larger scale. Do you see? So I had sweet shops, newspapers, sweets, etc. Right?
So you've been a businessman all your life,
all my life. I've never had a job. I've never known what it's like to get paid by the hour. And that's another massive fundamental lesson, right? So when you understand that the only way to get paid is by the hour for 95% of society. And I learned how to get paid through leverage.
But, if you talk about not having a job ever, never being paid, always being an entrepreneur. We live in a world where we send our children to school, to college, to get a good job.
Don't get me started. Paid. I know. For me, this is...
Look, and the kids, they grow up and they say, I want to be a doctor, I want to be an engineer, I want to be an architect, I want to be this, I want to be that, So at the end of the day, we still have to do the 9 to 5, right?
Who taught us that?
That's the society we find ourselves, isn't it?
Do you see? So again, my questioning mind, my curious mind, I always wanted to know. So when I was 6, 7 years old, I remember my dad turned up at a wedding. We had a car. My dad was one of 3 people that owned a car on our entire road. And he owned a car within 2 years of arriving in the country. So he lands in England, no money, doesn't speak the language again. English is not a language of us. So we arrive in England, no money, no academic education, no degrees, nothing. The people didn't want us, huge racism. There were signs in the windows in England, on the shop, no Irish, no blacks, and no dogs. They likened us, if you like, anyone of color, with dogs. That's the level of racism that existed in England when my dad landed.
That's gross racism, actually.
It's on a sick level, right? And this was just society, it was normal. And they thrived in that space. See, for me, when I witnessed that as a baby, I was 1 year old. I watched what my not just my parents, but their brothers, their sisters, their siblings, what they did against all odds. They did the jobs nobody wanted to do. Factory jobs, low-paid jobs, all the crappy jobs that nobody wanted to do, the local people didn't want to do. It was the foreigners that did those jobs. And they made no money. And even out of making no money, they managed to pay their bills and save. That enough, 10 years later, they saved enough money to buy their own business. So don't tell me about your circumstances. I've seen different. I've seen tons of people overcome their circumstances and create what they wanted to create. The power of vision, the power of creation, the power of manifestation has been around me my entire life. I've witnessed it firsthand too many times for anyone to tell me that it's not real. You see what I'm saying?
You know, sharing your story, something that just got to me now, you telling us how you witnessed things as an immigrant, as a little kid.
Yeah.
You know, and we have young people now across the world as immigrants that give excuses. I'm black, I'm brown.
Yeah.
I'm this, I'm that.
Whatever it
I'm
might
in a
be.
country that do not accept me.
Yeah.
I cannot thrive here. I cannot do anything here. What would you say to just kind of people right now?
Shift your perception. As long as you look, so here's how it works. There's a science to everything. Study the science of being human. I started doing this in my mid-20s.
What does it mean to be human, actually?
Right. So that's what I'm saying. When you study the science of being human, what does it mean to be human, right? So we get caught into this is how life should be. But if you step out of that for a second and step into how life could be, not how it should be, how it could be. Who says I need to be an accountant, a lawyer, a doctor, or any of those things? Said who?
But we need that, don't we?
There'll always be plenty of people that will do that because it's easy. It's easier to follow the system than it is to break out of it. Trust me, as an entrepreneur, it's not easy. The lows that we experience, the challenges we have to face, what the mountains we have to overcome when you're self-employed, I can see why most people, it's not attractive. There are months when there's no income and you still have to eat. Who does
Pay
that?
the bills.
Yeah. So it's not a easy path by any means. That's why I say it's very easy to follow the system. Get a good education, get your 3K, 4K, 5K a month, 10K a month, whatever your level of job allows you to make, and then get stuck in that rat race till you retire broke. Because they all retire broke. They all do. Statistically, 95% of humans retire broke. For me, this was a huge thing. It's like, how's that possible?
So if you're talking to a young man right now or young woman, all right, maybe trying to find their path, you would suggest that the person shouldn't, think of getting a job or shouldn't think of the 9 to 5?
No, I would never say that. Like I said, it's not for everyone. I would never say that. What I will say is keep your options open. So for the sake of stability, for the sake of being a responsible human being, and you have to pay your bills and pay your way in life, get a job. Get a job that satisfies you, that makes you feel good and that you enjoy so that you can pay the bills. But don't stop at that. What most people do is they stop there. They get the education and they get the job and then they stop learning. And the minute you stop learning, you stop growing. And the minute you stop growing, you kind of create a vacuum which you get sucked into for the rest of your life. And 40, 50 years passes like that and nothing changed.
Okay, now, so talking about this entrepreneurial journey, okay, as an entrepreneur, which of course comes with a lot of challenging times, can you share a little bit of your journey, all right? Because it's a very integral part of your life. Having this conversation with you, it's very obvious that you've been a businessman.
Yeah.
So I want you to share with us, those challenging times and how you were able to overcome those challenging times.
Sure. So challenging times are plenty. When you say challenging times, for me, my entire 55 years have been challenging.
Okay,
Why?
challenging time as a businessman. Let's be more specific.
No, that's what I'm saying. So as a businessman, they've been challenging. Why? Because I'm responsible. I'm responsible. Whether I make money tomorrow or not is on me. There's nobody paying my bills. There's nobody giving me a monthly salary going into my account. I know that takes care of everything. There's nothing that's taken care of, only me. So overcoming challenges is what I do as an entrepreneur. It's what entrepreneurs do every day. And when you have success, the challenges change, but challenges never leave because now you're running a business. You're responsible for the results of the business, right?
Yeah, of course.
As an employee, you're not responsible for anything. You're responsible for showing up. If you show up at 9 and you leave at 5, you're getting paid.
You're being paid for your time, practically.
Yeah, you're getting paid for your time. You just have to show up. And most people you speak to that have a job, their mentality is to do the minimum and get paid the maximum. This is the battle. The boss wants to pay you as little as possible and get as much from you as possible. And you want to give as little as possible and get paid as much as possible. This is the dynamic of the general population, right?
Okay.
As an entrepreneur, you have to give more to get more. There's no other way. You have to give more to get more. Imagine at work, you want to give as little as possible and get more money. It's a bad equation. As an entrepreneur, the more you give, the more you get.
So when I asked the question of the challenge times you've had, and how you were able to overcome them, what particular experience would you say was that moment that you felt like, okay, if I survive this?
So this is what I call the entrepreneur's mindset. Most people's mindset is they give in. They throw the towel in. They're hopeless. There's no hope. As an entrepreneur, you have vision.
Okay.
As an entrepreneur, because you have a vision, the vision without hope is pointless. So you know that if this is the vision and that's the outcome I want to create, then it doesn't matter how I get there. The how is unpredictable. Nobody knows how they're going to get from here to there. Your why has to be strong enough. Your reason for achieving an outcome has to be so strong that whatever challenges come your way, nobody knows what challenge is going to come. That's unpredictable. That's why I say that challenges come to everybody. You don't know. You can't control the challenges. They're going to come. You just know as an entrepreneur, you have a solution-conscious mindset. So when a challenge arrives, you're not defeatist and you're not defeated by it. You don't succumb to the challenge and say, man, I haven't got the knowledge, I haven't got the contacts, I haven't got enough money, I haven't got enough time, I don't have the experience. Excuses are out of the window. You're looking at the challenge, right, how do I overcome this one? Your default mechanism is, how do I overcome this challenge as an entrepreneur? Otherwise, you can't survive. So when challenges come, your mind has to go to, okay, what's the next step? How do I solve this current one so I can move forward towards where I want to go?
Amazing.
Rather than just going, oh no, this has happened to me, I hope something changes.
Okay, now while we dive into your story and your journey, I know every person, one way or the other, you're either Christian, you're either Muslim, you're either Hindu, we have lots of religions in the world. First and foremost, are you a spiritual or religious person?
Both. I say both because I was raised in a Hindu family, so I can't escape the learning. You see what I'm saying?
Okay.
So by birth, I'm a Hindu, and by experience, I'm a spiritualist.
Okay. What's the difference, by the way?
Religion is a belief system based on external input. Somebody told you something and therefore you believe that without questioning it. There's blind faith involved. Spiritualism is about awareness, awakening, questioning everything, believing nothing. I don't believe in anything. I'm open. I'm open to my beliefs being proven wrong every day.
But you believe there's a God, right?
Not in the context of religion, no.
What context then?
So the word God, again, it's limiting. The minute you say I believe in God, you're believing in if you like, for most people, because it's done in the context of a book, you're believing in somebody up there or out there that's looking down on you and judging you or doing things to you. This makes you powerless. It's in God's hands. No, it's what's in God's hands. You see what I'm saying? So I believe that there's a phenomenal miracle happening in the universe. The miracle is the universe. I believe that. I believe that the fact that Earth is spinning at millions of miles an hour is a miracle through the universe.
Sitting here listening to you about religion, spirituality, I think that's a very big conversation.
It's huge.
We could sit here and talk about it for the whole day.
Yeah.
But the reason why I asked about your, religious or spiritual perspective, because I know that affects a human being in their interaction, in their day-to-day activities, in their job, in their career. So I just really want us to know, that side of you. So let's move up to, one part of a person's journey, all right?
Let me just say one thing about the religion as well, because it is a huge subject. I think I just kind of tapped into something very lightly. But the reason I don't buy into religion is because historically, that's the reason that people are divided, always, permanently in humanity. So whose religion is right? My one, your one, their one? Right?
But at the end of the day, we serve one God, right?
Sorry?
At the end of the day, we serve one God, either of the religions,
It's lip service. It's lip service.
Why would you say that? Why would you say that?
Because people say it and they still go to war for it. If you serve one God, who cares what you call it? Who cares what you call God if you truly believe we serve one? Why are we going to war for it? Why do we kill each other? Why do we fight each other for it if you truly believe that? You don't. You believe your one is right and you believe everyone else is wrong. This is the fundamental problem for me with religion. The minute you think your religion is better than somebody else's religion, we've got a problem and we've got a war. It's inevitable. This is the flaw in the system.
Okay, but I think at some point there must be like a paradigm shift, because I know
Listen, do you know how
that's
long
my opinion.
Do you
anyways.
know how long we've been around? I hear people say this. Do you know how long we've been around? Let's say for the sake of the uneducated, a few thousand years, and for the aware, millennia, right? And we haven't resolved this stuff.
Okay, let's hope we'll find a solution.
It carries on. For me, the solution is there, spirituality. That's the option. Now I'm not fixed to anything. I'm aware that there's phenomenal power that makes every magical thing happen. The fact that a seed can be planted in the ground and come out as a beautiful plant, phenomenal. Wow. Turn into a massive tree, beautiful. It's creative, it's magical to witness and experience. But the minute you label it that this is mine and I've created it, now we have a problem.
Okay.
Division.
Okay, as we get to know Kalpesh Patel today, I would like you to tell us what's the best advice you've ever received.
The best advice I've ever received. That's tough. See, again, and I talk about this as well, right? So I've never been, I won't say never, right? We're all at different stages of our life, influenced by different things. But most people live their life with external input. I've always been, and again, that's why I count myself super blessed. Because of the way I was raised, I guess, I've been internally referenced. And so the best advice I've received has always been from myself. My intuition, my gut feeling, my guidance system is so fine-tuned that for me, this is the best advice. Nobody else can tell me how best to live my life than me.
Amazing. Just before the next question, throughout this conversation, you've been talking about your upbringing, how blessed you are, your family and everything. And it just brings to bear that a child's family, plays an integral role, a very pivotal role in the success or failure of that child, right?
Yeah.
So as parents, because we have parents watching this, all right, what do you think you would say to parents as they raise their kids?
First of all, the kids we're raising today are not the kids that were raised 30 years ago. So we have to be aware of that. As parents, if you're a parent watching this, understand that trying to raise your child today the way you were raised ain't going to work. It's not going to work because they're two different languages. There's been such a big shift because of technology in the way they think, the way that they've experienced life. You've got to remember, the internet means they have access to information that by the time they're 15, 20 years old, they have had several lifetimes worth of information inputted into their system. And now if you're still talking about what you did 50 years ago, they can't really, it's a disconnect. They can't relate to it. You're talking about, I used to climb trees and fall over. I used to ride bikes on the streets. I used to play football in the streets until the lights went out. When you're talking about these things, the modern generation cannot even begin to relate to your world. See, when I said that, if I had kids and I was saying that in the beginning, there was a relationship. Like if my parents said, we play on the streets, I can say, yeah, I played on the streets. Granddad played on the streets. My great-granddad played on the streets. Guess what? Today they don't play on the streets. So you got to become relevant. If you're going to connect with your kids, if you want to influence your kids and you want to give them the best chance of being a better version of themselves, because you have a lot to offer. You've got life behind you. They don't have life behind them. They've got information, they've got knowledge, but they don't have life. You have life experience. But you have to find a way to bridge that gap and communicate and connect in a way that is understandable by them. So respect them. They're way more knowledgeable than you were at their age. Respect that. Don't dismiss that. Don't disregard it. They have more knowledge than you ever had when you were that age because of the internet. But then come from a space of you love them, you care for them, and you want to contribute as best you can and inspire them, encourage them to be always the best version of themselves. So to question yourself always. Is the next decision I'm making good for me and good for the world? Is what I'm doing good for me and good for the world? Or is it just good for me and I don't care if it's good for the world?
But we live in a world where people only think about themselves.
I know. More and more today than ever before because of this loop of learning is one way. There's no interaction with each other. So the entire learning system is through screen and human, right? Until now, it was human to human interaction. So there was learning from behavior, learning from personalities and interactions and communication, all sorts of learning in real life. Now there's no real life learning. It's conceptual, which is why when you speak to some of the youth, they know everything in theory. They know nothing in experience. And so, they know, but they don't understand.
What's the difference, by the way, of knowing and not understanding?
Exactly this conversation, right? Knowing is theoretical.
All right.
You can know how to swim by reading a book on how to swim. Understanding is somebody that got thrown in the deep end of the water and had to work it out.
How to survive and work
How
it
to
out,
work it out, right? Not anyone can know in theory. Yeah, you put one arm in front of the other and you kick and then you should swim. That doesn't work like that in real life. There's other things that go on called real life. You understand when you're in the water. What else happens?
Amazing. Okay, so what was the worst piece of advice you ever received or you ever heard?
The worst advice I ever hear consistently is what we touched on earlier on. I hear it all the time, sadly, that people are still misguiding people. In a world where we know what we know today and we understand as much as we do through experience, and we still have, unfortunately, people misguiding the next generation in terms of, the whole schooling system, get an education. Listen, you can study to be an accountant today, and there's an app already that's deleted your job. Come on, why did you spend the last 5 years studying accountancy? You wasted that person's life. The world has changed. Learn about something else. You better learn about AI. You better learn about blockchain. You better learn about cryptocurrency. You better learn about things that are relevant today and relevant to the future, and not learn the stuff that the last, 1,000 years have been learning about. It's irrelevant. Everything's finished. Everything that we knew about the system is ended. Even the financial system we know now is dead. There's no banking. What is banking? It's a bankrupt system. Banking's finished, right? We had the first small ripple in 2007, 2008. Watch what happens next. It's inevitable. For me, as a simple businessman with my basic understanding of economics, we have a huge problem coming very soon. Whether it happens next year or in 5 years or in 10 years, it's inevitable. There's an earthquake coming in the financial system that will make 2007-8 look like it didn't even exist. It's inevitable, because what we keep doing, we keep printing more money, which just weakens the power of money. And we're building a system that's just going to collapse under its own weight, inevitably. Which is why I'm excited about new money. What is new money? It's not paper money. It's digital money.
Crypto, right?
You got to learn about crypto. I know it. Humans hate new habits. They hate learning new information. They hate change, right? Love these things. Learn to love change. Embrace. There's one thing you can't avoid now more than ever is change. Things change like this. If you don't start to love change, you will get so outdated. You won't know to do. You will not even be able to survive in 10 years if you haven't worked out what crypto is. You won't be able to survive in the world.
Crypto conversation is a whole of
it's a whole different world as well.
It's a big
There's
conversation.
tons of different worlds here, right? Yeah.
It's a big conversation. Maybe we can talk about investment some other time and stuff.
Yeah.
But so while we look at your story today, what's like the thing that you used to value that you no longer value?
Things I used to value. Things.
Oh, what was the thing?
Things.
Okay.
I used to value things, right? Just yesterday, I had a friend with a conversation with one of my best friends I've known for 20 years. And he noticed that I don't have any bling on anymore, right? And I was Mr. Bling for most of my life. Diamond rings, diamond this, diamond that, earrings, designer clothes. I was that person because I valued that people, look, deep down inside, we all know that these shades are not worth $300. We know that. There's no way this is worth $300. Why did I pay it? Because that stupid little label on the side. If I take that label away, these are $10 in any shop on the planet. That's stupidity, isn't it? That awakening. I don't value things anymore. I have a few things lying around from before, but going forward, like my latest car that I bought is a Genesis. Who buys a Genesis? I could buy anything I want. There's not a car on the planet I can't afford to buy. I buy one that costs me like next to nothing. It's efficient, it's beautiful, it's smooth, it's got all the things that I need in it. I love it. I drive that more than the Bentley. I drive the Bentley for others. It's really weird. I've kept that car so that when somebody comes to visit me, because unfortunately people like all that stuff, right? So I kind of have to live in both worlds. I live in my little world of nothing.
So you live for yourself or you live for others?
Yeah, so when I'm meeting certain people I know that expect certain things, I'll show up because I know, oh, wow, he's got a Bentley. Now I should talk to him and do business with him. For me, that shouldn't be the thing. We should be talking about the business, irrelevant of what I've got, but I know that that's going to make you sit up and listen. So I bring it in. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's stupid. It's the games we play, right? So yeah, I don't value things like I used to.
So if you were to talk to your younger self, what would you say?
Learn that faster. Don't live to impress others. Don't live to, what is all of that? You know what I mean? Like there's so much more available. Make you the value.
Amazing. I like that. I like that.
Yeah, when you have clarity who you are for you, who you are for your family. Learn quicker that your family is way more important than any friends that you're going to meet along the way. Friends come and go. They're so transient. The friends you have at school are not the friends you have in your 20s. Maybe one, maybe two, maybe three if you're super, super lucky, right?
Okay.
But the vast majority of your friends will not be around when you're dead, when you're dying. It's your family that's going to give you a roof over your head if ever you need it. It's your family that's going to put a plate of food on the table if you ever need it. They're the ones that are going to push your wheelchair for you if those days ever come. Value those people that are connected to you, or like for life, than the people that are transiently flowing through here and there in your life, right?
Okay. Just before we wrap up, because we're actually trying to wrap up, I can have you, 55-year-old, in my studio, and I'll ask you a particular question about marriage. What's your view on marriage?
I love the idea of marriage for people that want that.
Okay.
So I never got married. Wasn't for me.
Wow. Let's talk about this. Why? Why do you think so?
It's a big responsibility, and I never wanted that. For me, again, that's why I'm so super blessed that ever since a young age, my references for life have been through me questioning everything. Like, why is that person working so hard for somebody else? When I knew from a young age, the people that have a better lifestyle are the ones that work for themselves, always. If you go through the Forbes, my dad used to have a newsagent, right? So I'd read the Forbes list. There's never anyone that worked for somebody else in the Forbes list. Every single one of them was self-employed. So then why am I going to work for someone else? If I can create abundance, if I can create whatever kind of lifestyle I want for myself, then it's got to be through me. No one else is going to want a better life for me than me. The boss doesn't want you to have a better life than them. That's the bottom line. So create it yourself, right? So learning these things, going through, for me, that self-responsibility is important. So getting married, you're now committing to another human being that you will be there for them no matter what. By default, you can't be there for yourself.
But there's this saying that, marriage, makes you feel or look responsible.
It does. It does. It does. If you don't feel responsible yourself, it makes you feel responsible.
So you can actually
and you are
not be married and feel responsible.
I'm here.
Nice.
I didn't want to commit 20, 30 years to raising children.
But if you were actually in your 20s now, would you do this again?
No, yeah, I'd do this again. I wouldn't get married. Even more so now, because then it was a risk, right? In my 20s and 30s, it was a risk if I didn't get married. I'm not going to have kids. I don't know what it feels like not to have kids when you're 30 years old. Now I'm 55. I know without any shadow of a doubt that I would redo this life. Because what I've achieved in that last 3 decades, I could never achieved as a human being in the same way as if I was married without causing some kind of damage, some kind of hurt, some kind of pain to other human beings that rely on me for their security. Does that make sense? As an entrepreneur, can you imagine? At 50 years old, 5 years ago, I was broke. I had nothing. 5 years ago. Can you imagine being married with children and being broke at 50? I can't. I wouldn't want that. I would not want to put somebody else through that journey. As an entrepreneur on my own, I can handle it. I don't care if I'm broke. I'll work it out. You know what I mean?
Of course.
I'm cool. So I knew from early I didn't want that responsibility. That's what I'm saying, that for people that want that, I love it. My brother's married, 3 beautiful kids. He's lived a beautiful life that way. But then he could never have the life I've had. Do you see? His sacrifice was he's never traveled the world. There's tons of stuff, right? It's just 2 different experiences. I knew from early on the experience I wanted to have of this thing called this short, fast sprint of 80 to 100 years called life, if we're lucky. I could drop dead tomorrow, I don't know, right?
Yeah.
But, average 80 years or whatever it might be, right? It's quick, it flies. Like, what is 80 years? Nothing. I know from being 55, I can tell you how quickly it's gone, right? It's like, I don't even feel like I've got started yet. I'm hoping I'll be around another decade or 2 because I've got much, much bigger, kind of impacts I want to make. But, time flies. You got to choose your years very, very wisely.
Okay. Now, let's look at one thing, all right? If you could actually create one law that everyone in the world had to follow, what would that be?
A law that everyone had to follow. Responsibility. Whether it's financial responsibility, communication responsibility, well-being responsibility. We leave too much to chance, man. I think if we taught people to be responsible and think responsibly, and I'm going to say this, and this will ruffle a lot of people that hear it, but I say it anyway. I say it in more seminars as well. If you're responsible, as we talk about parenting, most people will have children, right? Most people will get married and they will have children.
Yeah.
That's how life is. If you do that and then you feed that child cereal, we've got a problem. You feed that child chocolates, you're murdering your own kid. And I say murdering as an extreme, for impact, I'm saying that, right?
Yeah.
You are poisoning your own child. Why? Because nobody taught you responsibility. So you just do what everyone does. We just follow along. We know it's not good. There's not a single parent on the planet that can say, I'm giving my child chocolate because it's good for them, right? I mean, if you say that, then you've got a bigger problem than you think. But we do that. That's what I teach. That's the law I would put in.
A responsibility.
Yeah, be responsible. Everything in moderation. I'm not saying don't eat chocolates, but when and I know in a modern version of that, we feed them the phone when they're eating. I see this all the time. To keep the children quiet at the table. And there are children that cannot eat unless they're watching a cartoon while they eat. They're not even present to eating. They're not present to being around a table with other human beings where they can interact. But rather, without the device, they can't even function. They can't eat. They literally fall apart at the table. If a parent takes the phone away, screaming, shouting, crying, they fall apart. They don't even know what it is to sit around the table without a device. It's the same thing. Be responsible. Don't encourage your children to be disconnected from human interaction.
Amazing. Wise words, I would say. So just before we go, all right, because I'm African. I come from Africa.
Me too.
Irrespective of wherever I am in the world today, I'm African, I'm Nigerian, proudly Nigerian, proudly African. And I know what it feels to be African. I know what it feels to come from Africa, with the kind of, situation that no matter how we want to paint it, no matter how we want to make it look or seem,
it is what it
is. All right. And there are young people out there with great potentials, amazing potentials, struggling to get it right. All right. You were born in Africa. All right. So, and you've achieved what you've achieved so far in life, impacting over 5,000 lives. All right. You could check him out. You could Google him. You find out who he is. All right. So what would you say to that young kid in the streets of Africa right now? Okay. Trying to make it in life and struggling and hoping that he makes it. What would you say to that kid?
Let go of your history. And when I say let go of your history, I don't mean let go of your history because your history is beautiful, but let go of the pain you associate to your history. Africa as a continent is one of the richest continents on the planet, as is India, for example, but unfortunately has been abused the hell out of by society for hundreds of years. And that has us believe that we are lesser than we actually are. Flip that switch. Without Africa, without India, without the huge resources that these countries have, the people that have abused that wouldn't be anything near who they are. Africa has substance. Look into that. Don't look into the oppression. Don't look into the slavery, and because there's a mindset that buys into that subconsciously. We come from slavery. No, you don't. Look past slavery, beyond that, before slavery. Don't stop at slavery. Go past that. Let go of the slavery story and own your power. You own it. Make the decisions.
I like that statement. Own your power. I like it.
Own it. It's a powerhouse. Like India is now beginning to own their power. Finally, they were made free 50 years ago, more, right? 70 odd years ago. India was given freedom 70 years ago. It took them 70 years to find somebody to run the country that was beyond the system and was brave enough to make decisions to empower the country. Now look at India, one of the fastest growing superpowers on the planet. I truly believe in the next decade to 2 decades, they'll be the number one superpower on the planet. The US and Europe will be looking up to them, wondering, where did we go wrong?
That's
Africa has the same. Africa has the same potential.
Okay.
They need to believe that they have that potential and choose better people to run it. Again, it's corruption that kills in these systems, unfortunately. In what the West calls third world, there's nothing third world about them. It's all labeling. If you buy into third world, you already feel like a victim. It's not, it's first world, right? Okay. Their worlds don't exist without these worlds. So first understand that Africa's a first world country, and then understand to run as a first world country, you need to choose better people that are in control of the mechanisms and the decision making.
The resources.
Yeah. Don't stand for the nonsense. And it takes, it'll take however many people it takes to have that impact, right? Africa's brought some phenomenal people through. I talk about Nelson Mandela as a classic example of somebody that stood for something way ahead of his time. And if it wasn't for him, he risked his life, right?
Okay.
He risked assassination by speaking up against a system that was ridiculously stupid. And as did Martin Luther King, or, anyone you want to choose in history going back. Be that person. Be the one that's willing to stand for something that's worth talking about.
Speak up. Amazing.
Yeah.
It's been nice having you on the show today on Fuse. And thank you so much for coming. It's been an amazing conversation.
Absolutely.
And I hope everyone watching this right now has actually learned something, has been inspired, motivated, to actually step out, start, taking action. Stop the excuses. Stop the excuses, all right? Here on Fuse, we bring, people that have actually gone through a very long journey and make you understand their story, learn from what they've gone through, and try to take action. A wise man once said, you got to be stronger than your excuses. Start now. Take action. That's a wrap on Fuse today. Watch out for more amazing episodes. Bye for now. I remain Ken.
Fuse with Ken. An amazing experience.